what you kind of felt would happen?
Yeah, and then I thought with the rebounding, we had some really, really key. They had like maybe 2 or 3, I think, in a row offensive rebounds that hurt us. Where I think Bain even made, if he missed a couple, one we had chances to rebound. He knocked down that third one. Like we had opportunities, and again, who knows what would have happened coming down the floor on the offensive end. But like I thought we did a good job physically because they're a big, strong physical team for the most part. But I thought those 3 or so, if it was 3, there was certainly 2 right in a row that went right back, and there was another one where. I think it may have been Suggs or Wendell Carter kind of went over the top and grabbed it and dunked it back in. Like those ones I thought hurt because I felt like we were, finding a way to manufacture enough points. But those rebounds could have at least maybe helped us build the lead out a little bit. And that I thought, in particular that stretch there hurt us.
How disappointed were you with you guys jump up 15 in the third with like 6 minutes left, and then they just punch, and now all of a sudden all that work you guys did is kind of wasted?
Yeah, I mean, it started the fourth. I think it was tied, maybe 83 all, 85 all, and we got up 15. And like, listen, we're going to have some young guys out there. I tried to as best I could. Really in the whole fourth quarter, we just went with 6 guys, and I was just try to keep guys as fresh as possible. I don't know. I didn't look at all the minutes, but I'd imagine for a team playing as fast as Orlando has played and the way we're trying to play, there's probably several guys that have probably absorbed way too many minutes. I was trying to keep them somewhat fresh in the fourth quarter because I thought we'd run out of gas.
To the point of the rebound, it felt like almost every time out you called was because they either rebounded or missed free throw or no. In some ways, does it feel like you keep losing the same game?
Well, I think I, said, beforehand, a lot of times it's not about missing or making shots. It's about all the other stuff. I give Io credit. It was a blocking call, but he tried to put his body in and try to take a charge. They came over the back several times and, offensive rebounding. They came in physically. There was a lot of plays like that. And I thought for the most part, we showed some good fight in those areas. But, yeah, I mean, we're going to have to make the jump. This is a team that's obviously has been playing very, very well. With an injury to a key player. They're big, strong, they're physical, they get to the free throw line, they offensive rebound, and they play fast. So that's got nothing to do with shooting. That's got everything to do with the physical component of the game. And I thought for the most part, we did a good job. I thought we did a good job. We had those possessions I mentioned to Joe that we didn't do a good job on. But, yeah, well, I mean, our margins on the air, we can't allow that. We just don't have the margins to do that, in a game like that, especially with the number of guys that we have out. And again, I think the guys off the bench did a good job competing and playing. Like Julian had a couple really, really timely offensive rebounds, tip dunk. Like there was some really good things that happened on the glass for us offensively. Like we got extra possessions on that. And that's what I think a lot of these younger guys need to understand, that those are the things that really ultimately impact winning, those winning kind of plays. Groin. Not sure which leg, though.
Joel mentioned a couple of those rebounds on the free throws, the offensive rebounds that were allowed. And those seemed less like a physicality thing and more like that's just a mental blip. How do you coach players through that? Do you think it's an exhaustion thing? Like, where do you think that's coming from?
No, I don't think it's an exhaustion thing at all, and I don't think it's necessarily a mental thing. I think what ends up happening is, and maybe it could be mental from what you're talking about, there is an expectation that maybe the ball's just going to go in, and it doesn't, and you don't really block and check out, like you need to. And we had a couple of those tonight, quite honestly, and those things add up. I think if you look at NBA games and the net, margins on teams, like the margins are really thin, they're really small, and you just can't have that. And we had several of them. I think Trey, I think he's okay, but he tweaked his ankle a little bit. Like he was really physically trying to block out. I mean, that's ultimately what happens in those situations. And we got to be better there at the free throw line. We had a couple of mishaps there where we got wedged. Quite honestly, they're taking us and they're kind of driving us underneath the rim, and we've got to be able to kind of hit first a little bit. And when that happens, the only rebound you're going to get is the one coming out of the net.
I mean, much as we talked about physicality in the glass and this being sort of the reason you guys have lost games, like, do you feel like you and your staff have sort of exhausted that message to this point? Like there's not really much more you could say about it?
Yeah, man, I think you're always going to talk about those things all the time. You know, it's not like they did a really good job tonight in a lot of areas. I thought we made like significant growth. Now, we didn't win the game, and I was disappointed with the fouling part of it, putting to the free throw line. But like Modest went vertical at the rim. Guys were stepping in and trying to take charges. Like they're doing it. But there are, you know, challenges for us physically, being young, being somewhat long or wiry, you know, like Modest, this is all new for him, you know, so I think they're trying really, really hard, in a lot of ways doing a really, really good job. It's just not good enough to get wins, you know, and that's what we're here to do. And there's no like moral victories. I'm not trying to paint it that way. I'm not about that at all. But to your point, I mean, when we didn't block out in the free throw line, I immediately called a timeout. Like, we're not doing that. That's going to get us beat. But I think that they are trying. I think they are trying to do those things. And I'll be anxious to see the plays on Wendell Carter and Suggs and a couple of those guys flying in. You know, did we legitimately focus and turn and block out, or were we just physically overpowered, you know, in that situation? The Wendell Carter one was hard for me to look at. I don't know who was, maybe I think Modest may have been down there with somebody else, but he grabbed the rebound and he dunked it back in. Like, I want to see how hard, do we try to block out or not? You know, it's the attention to detail and those kind of things. And we're not going to be perfect. There's so many possessions, but I definitely feel like they're trying. I don't think there's any question about that. I mean, we went from 28th or 29th in the league last year in charges, and we're up in one of the league leaders. I mean, we're trying to do the things physically, you know, and I do see us being better at the point where teams were driving right through us and taking layups. I don't necessarily see that happening. Just the reality is it's not been good enough to get us over the hump, win games, and we got to be better. You know, we've got to be better.